Hello friends, Tom Downey here for NFL Daily, taking a look at 5 NFL players who could be traded this year. We'll get to 5 more in a future video, so make sure to subscribe below, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We'll take you through 5 today, starting with one Kyle Rudolph of the Minnesota Vikings, who there have been quite a few trade rumors around Rudolph, and it makes some sense. He's going to count over $7.6 million in the final year of his contract with the Vikings. And Minnesota, they're fairly tight on cap space. That's led to some trade rumors. Teams like the Patriots have been mentioned in discussions with Minnesota. At the same time, though, the Vikings have also had contract extension talks. This is one of those where it might go either way, and if you're Minnesota, have to make a decision in the somewhat near future. They did give themselves an out, though, at tight end. They took Irv Smith in round 2 because they've coveted a more typical move, athletic-type tight end in recent draft history. They finally got one, Irv Smith, and they've got, I suppose, passable enough depth with David Morgan, Tyler Conklin, and some others on that roster, but overall would be a bit of a downgrade. But if you're trying to save money long-term, maybe makes some sense there. The biggest issue for Minnesota and a possible trade here is there aren't a ton of great trade fits. Buffalo maybe makes more sense now, given that Tyler Kroft is hurt. Arizona, maybe. Tennessee, if Delanie Walker does not get healthy. The Raiders also make some semblance of sense there. But I still think the Patriots, even after bringing in Ben Watson, I think they make the most sense. We've seen New England in the past be willing to use multiple tight end sets, and not only be willing, have incredible success with multiple tight end sets. And I like Ben Watson, but let's not forget he's like 38 years old, and can you trust him to stay healthy for an entire season? And if not, do you want to rely on Austin Seferian-Jenkins? I don't know if that's the best route there. So if New England wants to go that route, I think they end up making the most sense. Now, in terms of what Rudolph could fetch in a trade, the numbers kind of speak for themselves, somewhere in that 4 to 7 touchdowns, and those that won 8 touchdown year. But as Mitchell Renz likes to say, don't chase touchdown production because it gets a little in and out of whack each and every year. Around 500 plus yards overall. But which is more likely for Minnesota and Rudolph? Let me know in the comment section. Type E for an extension and T for a trade. Remember, Minnesota can extend Rudolph and, in all likelihood, bring down his cap hit for this coming year. That does make some sense. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. E for extension or T for trade. Then we have one of the biggest names who has been mentioned out there for quite some time, Patrick Peterson. Now remember the drama he's had over the past really half a year at this point for Arizona. Wanted to trade midseason, then said, nah, I'm okay. I don't need my trade. Then was upset. Then got the 6-game suspension for performance-enhancing drugs. By the way, that murders his trade value. You're a guy that's going to be not going to be able to play for you for 6 games. Who knows how he looks when he comes back for it? He's not going to be with the team. There is still 2 years left on his deal, and there's some interest, but with the suspension, with the apparent feuding Peterson and the front office have had in recent, maybe months, maybe years, if it wants to go that far back, it might be trending towards a divorce at some point soon. So Arizona, they signed Robert Alford this offseason, David Amerson too. They drafted Byron Murphy early in round 2. That was a fantastic selection. Of course, there's no doubt this cornerback room is better with Patrick Peterson on the roster than without it, but they at least have better depth, and they wouldn't be totally dead in the water like they would have been before the offseason began. So should Arizona trade Patrick Peterson? I know they want to win right now, but let's be realistic here. First-year head coach, rookie quarterback, they're probably not in win-now mode. The biggest issue is what could you possibly get back for Patrick Peterson? I thought they would have held out for a first-round pick. With the suspension, I don't think that's going to end up happening for Arizona. Now, some teams that make sense as possible trade fits. Detroit there at number 5, Pittsburgh number 4, Denver at number 3, and the 2 most intriguing ones, at least to me personally, San Francisco number 2 and the Chiefs at number 1. And it's really number 1 and almost everybody else. Because you look at what Kansas City has right now. I like Kendall Fuller. He's a good corner. He's kind of more of a true nickel guy. That's not a bad thing because most teams play nickel these days. He can play some outside too. But then it's Rashad Breeland, Travarius Ward, Traymon Smith, Reeser. It's not going to get the job done. If you bring in Patrick Peterson, yes, it would be expensive from an on-the-field draft capital standpoint, and beyond that, from just a monetary perspective. Chiefs are all in right now. You get Patrick Peterson back for the second half of the season, that's a pretty good all-in addition right there. Then there's the 49ers, and this one is just, it's more fun for me on this front. Because the Niners have an intriguing depth chart where you've got Travarius Moore, you have DJ Reed and Jimmy Ward, who all kind of play some corner, can play some safety as well, some flexibility there. But if you bring in Patrick Peterson, Richard Sherman is all of a sudden your number 2 cornerback. Maybe you cut Kwan Williams, you make Jason Verrett your full-time nickel corner, which could very well happen. Witherspoon gets another year or 2 or 3 of development if he ever actually ends up getting there. It's a fun idea for San Francisco. Biggest issue for them, they don't have a 2020 second-round pick because they traded it away as part of the D Ford move. So again, here are my top 5 teams for Patrick Peterson. The top 2 make the most sense: Chiefs, Niners, Denver. What if you included Chris Harris in a trade? Wouldn't that be a fun little idea for Denver to at least consider it? By the way, I think the Seattle Seahawks make a lot of sense for the Seahawks perspective, but the Arizona Cardinals would never trade Pat Pete within their own division. We'll stick with defense here. How about Carl Joseph? Now, there were some trade rumors around Joseph and the Raiders before the NFL trade deadline last season. And then Oakland drafted Jonathan Abram in round 1. In reality, that's your long-term strong safety. Abram and Joseph have some similar traits and some similar play styles, but Abram is the future there. Joseph is maybe the present, but not the long-term answer. But if you're Oakland, you don't need to rush into a trade. You have Carl Joseph, you have Jonathan Abram at strong safety, but what if Abram isn't quite ready to go in year 1? Which I don't think will be the case, but maybe it is, or God forbid a safety gets hurt. Well, then maybe you sit and wait and you use Joseph for 1 more year. You're not going to have that 5th-year option for him because you're not going to pick it up. But maybe you can move on at that point. Maybe you play LaMarcus Joyner more in the nickel and you try to make Carl Joseph a free safety. I don't think that's the best route, but if you play maybe more of 2 single high, maybe Joseph Abram can make that work out in the end. So for Oakland, there isn't a rush to trade away a safety. The one team that I think makes the most sense, though, if they were to trade him, are the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'll say it's about a 5th-round conditional pick value there. You're not going to get a 3rd. I don't think you get a 4th. But let's say the Cowboys make a deep playoff run and Joseph plays well and they re-sign him and it gets bumped up to a 4th in that range. I think 5th feels about right for a limited time frame for Carl Joseph. So who says no to this trade? Let me know in the comment section. R for the Raiders and C for the Cowboys. I suspect Raiders fans might type in R, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section. As for the Cowboys mindset, yes, they signed George Iloka. Yes, they have Jeff Heath. Still, they still have Kevon Frazier. They took a 6th-round flyer on Donovan Wilson. They got Xavier Woods locked in at free safety. I think Carl Joseph would be a good fit for what Chris Richard wants and likes to do at the strong safety position. Now, again, you're maybe not going to have him as a long-term fit, but for a 5th-round pick, I think more teams should do this. Spend those late-round picks not on rookies, but go ahead and add a veteran player. If they make the roster for 2 years, that's what you would have hoped for that 6th-round pick anyway. And for Joseph, even though he's getting a 1st-round pick, is still fairly cheap. And I assume neither side would pick up that 5th-year option because that gets a little bit expensive. One more safety here. How about Josh Jones of the Green Bay Packers? Now, as I'm sure you've heard, he's skipping OTAs with Green Bay because he wants to be traded. Here's the thing for Josh Jones. Normally, players that demand to be traded are good. And in reality, Josh Jones has not been very good for the Green Bay Packers. That's why they signed Adrian Amos, and that's why they went out and drafted and traded up to get Darnell Savage in round 1. Jones, a former 2nd-round pick, I had high hopes for him, but early results in Green Bay have been mixed at best. There has been the Bengals game, for example, was one really good game he had, but beyond that, he's been a backup caliber safety. Now for Green Bay, they're fine at the top 2 spots, Amos and Savage, and Tramon Williams might end up playing that number 3 safety role. Now you always need depth, but if Jones really wants out and he's going to be maybe not a clubhouse cancer, but a disruption within the locker room, maybe you do trade him away. Here's one team that I think could make a decent sense, or make some sense. And again, Jones is not going to be a starter for any team he goes to, barring injury. He'll be more of a depth safety who can also play some dime linebacker. How about Carolina? They give a conditional 6th-round selection. I think it makes some sense there. And of course, he went to NC State, so it's kind of a homecoming there, I guess, for Josh Jones. So who says no to this one? Type 1 for the Packers and type 2 for the Panthers. Let me know what you guys think there in the comment section. As for Carolina's mindset, I think they could use some help. And obviously, Eric Reed's going to start. That's a no-brainer. They re-signed him for good reason. Colin Jones is serviceable. We'll see how Rashawn Golden looks in year 2, but beyond that, Quinn Blanding, it's not really what you're looking for there when it comes to safety help. And you can maybe get some cornerback help too for Carolina, but whatever. And then with the loss of Thomas Davis, maybe you kind of have Jones with more as a more safety-focused version of Shaq Thompson, who does at least bring you some potential nickel sub looks there at the linebacker spot. That's my proposed trade there. A 6th-round pick maybe is even a little high given the way I think the NFL views Josh Jones. One last player, that is Artie Burns of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Go way back when the Bengals were targeting receivers. They went off the board, so they take William Jackson, who Pittsburgh was going to take in round 1. And then Jackson's off the board. The Steelers go to the next best corner. That's Artie Burns. And my, oh my, how those two players have had drastically different careers. William Jackson, one of the most underrated corners in the NFL. His stock is on the rise. Artie Burns was benched last year. It's not great. He might be in need of a change of scenery. And for Pittsburgh, Joe Hayden's there. They signed Steven Nelson. They drafted Justin Lane. Mike Hilton's still fine in the nickel. That's your top 4. Cameron Sutton, different Sutton. Cameron Sutton's probably going to be your number 5. That leaves Artie Burns, Brian Allen, maybe for your 6th spot. So if you're Pittsburgh, if you can trade him, I think you try to do it. Because in reality, I think he's kind of a sunk cost for Pittsburgh. So I'm looking for a team that likes arm length, because Artie Burns has 33 and a quarter inch arms. How about the 49ers? We'll go back to them one more time here. This is a pure depth addition there, but it's a conditional 7th-round pick. Why not? If he doesn't make the roster, maybe you don't give a pick at all. I think that seems fair. I know Burns is a former 1st-round pick, but the value is not there right now, and the production on the field has not been there for Artie Burns. So who says no? Type S for the Steelers and 4 for the 49ers. Now, again, I'll make note here with the Niners, it's more of a depth addition. Maybe you move Travarius Moore full-time free safety, which I think is his better spot, by the way. And then you have Richard Sherman, Witherspoon, Verrett. You maybe keep Williams and Reed, and maybe you see if Artie Burns can develop into a number 4 corner. Maybe let him compete with, I think, 6th-round pick Tim Harris out of Virginia. Again, it's a depth addition there. Artie Burns is not going to fetch much trade value. Frankly, he might just end up being outright cut by Pittsburgh because, yeah, it's not looking great for him on that front. So a recap here again. 5 NFL players who could be traded. Kyle Rudolph is my first player. Patrick Peterson, the suspension kind of impacts him pretty much in a big way there. 2 safeties. Carl Joseph, who might ride out one more year in Oakland. Josh Jones, who wants to be traded. And Artie Burns, who really doesn't have much value. So again, stay tuned. Later on in the week, folks, we will have 5 more players who could be traded here for you on Chat Sports.